All right. Well, I will call to order the Ravenna City Council, the Committee of the Whole meeting for April 19th at 7 p.m. The first item on the agenda this evening is the approval of Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of March 22nd, 2021. Were there any additions, corrections, or questions regarding those? Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
I actually have a correction.
Oh, go ahead.
I believe that I was the one that called executive session for personnel.
Okay. Was that the only correction you found?
That was the only one that I found.
Okay, thanks. Well, with that correction, did anybody else have anything that they found in those minutes? With that correction, then, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Number 2 on the agenda is an ordinance to appropriate $8,000 from Fund 237 for the police department. This is public health and safety. Ms. Michael?
Yes. Basically, the money is already there. It's in a different account. We just need to move it over. It's money that is received, that the police department gets from the drug task force on the sale of property that's during raids and so forth. So it's just getting the money to where it needs to go. No cost.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Michael or Chief Wallace? Hearing none, what is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right. Number 3 on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept a donation of $10,000 from the Ravenna City or Ravenna Softball Organization. This is planning, Mr. Karras.
Yes, it seems that this organization is suspending operations, but they're supporting our girls softball initiative by giving us a $10,000 cash donation. In fact, they've already written the check to the city. So this is just a matter of the city accepting the money. Very generous donation, by the way.
Yeah. Any questions on this item? Well, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Number 5 on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for a $100,000 Cotw grant for Parks and Rec. This is also Parks and Rec, Mr. Karras.
Yeah, you skipped over
4.
All right, you're right. I crossed that one off on accident.
It's okay. We can go pretty quickly. It's just in conjunction with the previous item that organization is also donating nearly 2,400 pieces of equipment. Some of them new, some of them like new. So to go along with the cash donation, they're donating that to our girls softball initiative.
Yep. Was there any questions on that? Number 4 on the agenda. What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Thanks. And number 5, back to the ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for a $100,000 grant for Parks and Rec.
All right, so this is another grant that Parks and Rec are seeking. It's a $100,000 non-matching grant through Cotw. And if we get it, we'll be able to, the priority would be to correct drainage issues on a couple of the ball fields over at Havers Woods. If there's money left over from the grant, then they plan on putting in a story walk within the current trail. So, I mean, I think we do have to buy their equipment. Their application was quite long to read through. But anyway, kudos again to Parks and Recs for seeking these grants. These are great opportunities.
Any questions from council on this? What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Right, and number 6 on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for a Nature Works ODNR grant for Parks and Rec.
Okay, so this grant provides up to 75% of the project cost. And it's to put in bathrooms at the Haverwoods Park. Now, I did have a question about this. I don't know if anybody has a good answer, but the budget, and I was just checking, the previous one didn't have a budget, it's just an application for the grant. But this one, I mean, they've actually picked a vendor and they have a budget for how much it would cost to do this, and it's over $64,000. And so my question is, why is this not required to be bid on, since it does exceed the $50,000 threshold? And I understand that some of it's grant funded, but I don't understand, I don't necessarily know why that would make a difference. At the end of the day, there's going to be an entity paid for this. And if that payment is above 50,000, it's my understanding it has to go out to a bid, but maybe somebody can enlighten me as to why that's not necessary. And of course, we can push this on. I'm not opposed to this. I'm just asking a question because these issues of what needs to be bid on and what doesn't have come up, mostly because I raised the issue. But I just happened to notice since our last meeting that there was a budget, there was a vendor picked, and no bid went out. And of course, it's all contingent upon getting the grant. I get all that, but if anybody has an answer to that question, I'd be interested. And if not, maybe someone could look into it before we vote on it in May.
Yeah, and I think asking the law director, Mayor, I don't know if you have an answer for that, but the law director's out of town. That was my first request, is just to ask him.
The mayor's talking, but I think he's muted.
He's
Oh.
muted.
Is that a preliminary budget, Rob, that was needed for the grant, where it's like not, just like an idea of what they need and so forth?
It's
I mean,
pretty
there was no
specific.
contract.
It's not a roundabout number.
The problem with a preliminary amount from estimate bid from a contractor, Amy, is that if it does need to be bid out, I do believe that there is a stipulation that because that contractor provided us with an estimate, that we can't receive a bid from them.
Right, that we just talked about something similar to that.
And I do believe that Rob's right, unless the mayor has something else.
Oh, I was going to say that I agree with Rob questioning this. And Frank is out of town, but I think he's due back tomorrow. It's either tomorrow or the day after. I can't remember if he said he'd be back on the 20th or he was coming back the 20th.
Which we could move it forward. And
yes, we can do that. Judy's also on vacation. So if need be, I can always call her. She's fine with that. But we'll check this out before the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember even over the years, it's always been anything over 50,000 to have 3 different bids, no matter what the project is or what the department is.
If you look at the bid, I mean, it's $46,664 for the actual quote that we got, but there's some add-ons, and I don't know if that's a separate vendor for the add-ons. So maybe that's why, because the actual restroom itself is under the 50,000. There's $5,800 for a buffer and then a couple other things in there too, but like separated. So I don't know if that's part of it too. I mean, it's definitely a good question to ask when Semino comes back to it for sure.
Okay.
I wasn't part of the grant, but when we look at the Chestnut Hills bathrooms, those were pre-made bathrooms, and if I'm not mistaken, they might have been purchased through government purchasing as units rather than on-site construction. I can't remember. I know we had a grant to build those, but they came in on a trailer already assembled and got fit into place. again, I don't know if this is what Judy's thinking, but if it were a government purchase type item, we would not have to publicly bid it. If it's going to be brick and block and constructed on site, then we would have to bid it if the estimate is over 50,000. But I also know applying for these grants, we commonly ask for a high end to make sure the grant will cover what we're looking to do. So the first step is getting the grant, and then the second step would be authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids, which will have to come back to council. And then again, the third step is authorizing the mayor to enter a contract. But without the grant, I don't see this project moving forward.
Well, I think it's a separate issue. I mean, I suppose I don't know why you couldn't just apply for the grant, but,
Well, you brought it up.
well, I'm just saying it's unusual. I don't remember seeing too many grants where the project is already sort of like defined by a particular vendor. Like the previous one is through Cotw, so that's an interesting, but it's more like a contest than a grant. Normally, I don't know, it seems to me you lay out a project and an estimate of how much it's going to cost, and then you apply for the grant. But here it's sort of like the grant's going to pay for a specific structure. I'm just confused, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing this. I just noticed the total amount for the project and the budget was above the threshold, and hopefully we could just get this cleared up by the next meeting.
Yeah, and I think if we're all right with moving it forward, at least for now, then we'll get those answers from Judy and then the law director on those questions.
Yeah, those things are quite important before there's a final decision.
Was there any other questions regarding this item? What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Ordinance.
Thanks. Number 8 on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for the 2021 CHIP grant. This is also community and economic development. Or I'm sorry, I skipped another one.
Yeah.
Jeez. We'll go back to 7.
We've got time, Mr. Kluge. We've got time.
He's running a marathon.
Well, I need to bring my pace down to a marathon pace. But let's talk about number 8, and then I'll go back to number 7.
Okay. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for the 2021 Community Housing Impact and Preservation Grant for $1,050,000, Ravenna being the lead entity, partnership with the city of Streetsboro and Portage County. And this would provide private rehabs up to $40,000, home repairs up to approximately $12,000 to owner-occupied units throughout the city. It would also cover the fair housing and administrative funds requirements of that program.
We talked about this quite a bit the last meeting, but was there any additional questions for Cheryl?
Could you give the CHIP the name again for it? Community
Housing Impact and Preservation Program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's no other questions. What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
All right, number 7 on the agenda is an ordinance utilizing RLF funds in the amount of $50,000 for playground improvements. Cheryl, this is also community and economic development.
This was an application received from the Ravenna Kiwanis in partnership with the CAC for the ADA compliant playground at the facility on North Walnut Street. They were requesting $50,000. They do have quite a bit of funds raised. I believe we did discuss and request that they provide a 50-50 match to what they are requesting, as well as the request would be up to $50,000, not to exceed that. So if they raise 47, then we would do 47, and there would be a lien placed for the amount 0% due upon sale or transfer of the property.
And then Cheryl, just can you confirm, or the mayor, the $50,000, yes or no that, and I understand the revolving loan funds part of this equation too, that they will be paying this back? Is this a grant? If we're
No, they're looking for a grant.
They're looking for a grant, but there is a lien on the property that if 5 years, 10 years down the road from now, they would decide to move to another facility and transfer that property to somebody else. At that point in time, they would pay it back to the revolving loan funds.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Is there any other questions on this? I know there's quite a bit of moving parts with this item. If there are no other questions, what is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Ordinance.
And number 9 on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the TIRC meeting minutes and recommendations. This is also Community and Economic Development. Ms. Wood.
Yes, this is housekeeping regarding approving the minutes that were provided by the TIRC committee. We don't sit on that committee, but for the enterprise zone and CRA, it's a requirement that we approve their minutes.
Is there any other questions on this, or Mr. Huff, anything to add?
No, I think we got it. I think we need to determine in the future who's going to be on this board in the future. Kimball was on the board before. It was changed to Dennis West. Unfortunately, I think we only have one appointment. So, I mean, if we want to leave Dennis on, I guess I can still help out with it. I can still sit on it, but I'm not part of the board. The county does have 2 appointments they could make. Unfortunately, they didn't make either one. So really the committee was kind of wiped out this year because Kimball was off. They didn't make their appointments. So we had just the bare minimum this year. Dennis wasn't able to attend this year. So I guess that's the future to them to see if, maybe I should be working with the county to get myself on the board too. So, but that's all. I mean, the minutes are fine. Everything's good. I think, they wanted to continue all the engagements.
We'll be doing a similar thing with the CRA for the theater. They were combined last year in the minutes.
All right. And was there any other questions on that? What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Ordinance.
And then number 10 on the agenda is an ordinance to approve and appropriate $1,868.50 for the purchase of downtown Wi-Fi equipment. This is information systems. Ms. West, or if you'd like me to take it, it's up to you.
This is something that we talked about in detail regarding our downtown Wi-Fi. The way that it's set up now isn't beneficial to be able to get in and change things. This gives us the ability to have better utilization and be able to access it. What else, Andrew?
Just to circle back, I think it was Rob that asked the question the last meeting in terms of two points I want to make. It will not decrease speeds here. It's a separate line that we are paying for, the internet speed. And then the number of people on it at any one time, he gave me an estimate of roughly 100 to 200 people. You will start seeing decreases in speeds on that, but in terms of weekend traffic, we should be okay, is what he was explaining. Is there any other questions on this item? What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
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 All right, and then number 11 on the agenda is Community and Economic Development Overview. This is brought to us by Ms. Wood.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to go into executive session to consider the purchase of a property as well as an economic development deal.
Cheryl,
Yeah.
before you go out of the meeting, I have an issue that would be under your committee also.
Oh, okay.
That's recent. Mr. Bogo called me a day or two ago, and Gwen, that owns Pop across the street, wants to borrow facade money to replace the roof on that establishment. Normally, NDS would just go ahead and process this and send it over. This time, it has to be processed by us. I am willing to do it, and I'm sure Cheryl will be willing to do it, because Gwen is an elected official in Kent, and NDS has contracts with them. They feel they should not be doing the approval, that it would be a conflict of interest. They can do the compliance because that's after the fact that it's been approved. But Cheryl and I will put something together to bring that to council, but I wanted you to know why we were doing it differently. We don't want to put anybody in the position that there is a conflict of interest with this. And of course, this is a business that's very deserving of our help, and that's what the money's there for.
Is that this upcoming meeting that you're looking to have that on for, or next month?
I think we'll probably try to follow we'll go through committee and follow on from there. Okay. We've actually approved some of these out of committee. We've done that in the past where the people in the committee vote on it and approve it, and then it can move from there, as long as it has the support of the committee.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for the heads up on that. With the executive session, did anybody make a second?
I will. I'll second that.
All right. And
Roll call vote.
Roll call. Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Moskin,
Yes.
Mr. Calfee,
Yes.
Ms. West,
Yes.
Ms. Michael,
Yes.
Mr. Karas,
Yes.
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
all right. And Mayor or Cheryl, in terms of individuals needed for the executive, who is it? Just council?
Council, basically.
Council and the mayor.
Okay. Well, we will not discuss anything else coming out of executive session for the other administration officials that are on the call. So give them a moment to hop off, and then I will